Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's long-range technical forecast video for Australia, brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. This analysis is being provided for perspective only, and any decision made based upon this presentation is the sole responsibility of the person making the decision. Finally, please remember that all long-range weather forecasting is speculative by nature. We start with the front half of this month. This is March 1st through the 17th, and you're looking at rainfall anomalies here. We can identify a couple of things. A tropical system early in the year, plus some thunderstorm activities, increased precip here across parts of Western Australia. We've had this kind of area right in here, which is quite common this time of year, of above average thunderstorm activity. We were drier north, we were drier pretty far to the south as well, including Tasmania. Now, when we take a look at this map and then compare it to what we have in terms of our root zone soil moisture, much of the country here looks to be in good shape. The question is, where are things going to be changing? And let's get to that answer. Now take a look at this forecast map of the low level in the atmosphere, the wind flow. Okay, so we're about a mile above our heads. And this is Monday, this upcoming Monday. And what I want you to take note of here is what's happening right here. You see, you almost can pick up on the direction the flow is going, where we have these easterly winds coming in and riding right up against this frontal boundary into this area. Now, what I've got color shaded for you here is humidity, and therefore you can tell how high the humidity is. Now, what's interesting about this is that this is really just sandwiched air between two high pressure cells. We'll put them in white. There's one here, and there is one here over Western Australia. And while this will make Western Australia dry and much warmer than average, we're anticipating a lot of precipitation in and around New South Wales. Take a look at this. This map shows you all the way out to, this will be the 22nd, okay, on Monday. We're looking here at something called precipitable water. Now, we're actually looking at precipitable water anomalies expressed in standard deviation. Now, what I want to tell you is for those of you that like statistics, what you've got right here, getting sandwiched in between the high pressure cell that was sitting here over Western Australia and the other one that's down here, is that flow is going to be bringing into this region up to 5, maybe even 6 standard deviations above the average in terms of how much moisture is in the atmosphere to be precipitated out. And as you can tell, I'm a bit excited about this because look at the amount of rainfall we're talking about. The high pressure cell over the west just shuts it down. But if you notice, there will be a corridor in through here where 30 to well over 100 millimeters of rainfall is possible. And then along the coast, over here in New South Wales, we could have some storms that put down much more than that. You can see the forecast. Now this is just through the next 7 days. We're talking upwards of 150 to 250 millimeters of rainfall. Now, I know what's going on right now in New South Wales with the winter wheat sowing. You know, this is incredible here. And then if you look down here near Adelaide, we're drier. We're just on the south side of this, but very dry over in Western Australia through the next week. Now, to show you how this all comes together, let's just run through the European model. We've already had some pretty big thunderstorms here just in the last couple of days, and we've been very dry in Western Australia. But you're going to see this all sandwiched together here as I work my way out in the next few days. So let's just step you back here. Let's go through the 18th, now into the 19th, and then into the 20th. So we still have the easterly flow here, and that's what's running up over here over the mountains, over the higher elevation land here, producing the precipitation. The moisture's coming down like this, right through Northern Territories, this part of Western Australia, and it's heading into this region. While still higher pressure, the nose of it, look at it, pushing up against Western Australia. Okay, as we get now in through the 20th into the 21st, now going into the 22nd, that's where the big push of moisture comes in. And this is going to be where we're expecting to get the heaviest rainfall here early next week while we're dry in Western Australia. We're dry just north of that in Queensland, well, drier. And it seems to just stay north of this section down here in South Australia. Playing this forward, let's now get into next Tuesday and through the week, next week. And you can see that gets cleared out and higher atmospheric pressure starts to build back in its place. But the total amount of rainfall that's coming through during that time period, when you compare it to normal, well, it looks like this. And some pockets in here, now this is in inches, but I'll just show you some places in here are receiving between 1 and upwards of 4 additional inches of rainfall compared to normal. While our drier spots here in South Australia, West Australia, and this northern tip here of Queensland are missing out on all of this. It's amazing to see how focused this next rainfall event is. You can imagine what the temperature pattern is going to do. Notice that underneath that cloud cover, cooler than average weather is expected. But where you're outside of it, we could see temperatures anywhere between 3 and 5 degrees Celsius above normal, especially as you get over here into parts of Western Australia, where we could be at times upwards of 10 degrees Celsius above average. Looking out into week 2, this will take us out, let's just go out there around the 26th of March. One thing I notice is here's the main branch of the westerlies, but we do have a pocket of stronger westerly winds here still skirting across the southern half of Australia, much more higher pressure to the north. And when we look at that, we notice that this is what the precipitation pattern is favoring. Where you see the greens, we're looking at wetter than average conditions. So over in Western Australia, we still pick up on a drier bias here, but wetter through South Australia, over into New South Wales, Victoria, even in Tasmania, and with that onshore flow here in parts of New Zealand, we could see above average precipitation. What's going on to the north here, though, is largely different by another event, but I'll get to that in just a few moments. Next, temperature pattern. This gets us out there to the end of March and the beginning of April. And again, we tend to favor above average temperatures here in Western Australia with a corridor of cooler weather tucked away from the northwest to the southeast, straight across the middle of Australia. All right, so we've got these temperature and precipitation patterns down in the near term. Now, as we start to stretch this out, and this is what I wanted to get to, let's get to this long range. Over there on the left, that's our phase diagram for the MJO. Now, over on the right are the correlation maps for precipitation. A very important thing has happened as of late. You see, earlier, the forecast of the MJO, where it's been up here in phase 6 and 7, and then moved over into phase 1. So let me trace it out for you. It's basically done that. There was a lot of thought that it was going to pop out here into phase 2 and 3 over in the Indian Ocean. And if you look, phase 2 and 3 put a lot of precipitation down here, and we tend to be drier across Australia. What has since happened is this is not where the MJO went. It turned back into null space, and it's appearing to want to pop out somewhere between phase 4, 5, and 6. Now, phase 4, 5, and 6 put down a lot more tropical convection just to the north of Australia. So as we start to use this as a metric moving forward, we see that looking through the month of April, we now favor wetter conditions here. We're also wetter in parts of New South Wales and Victoria. We're drier in parts of South Australia and this section here of West Australia. But notice we could potentially go back over to a wetter pattern, more increased, maybe some late season thunderstorm activity there. But the models still hang on to that warm bias, which means we're going to increase evaporation rates while things seem to be cooler, again, in that very similar corridor. Let's add a bit more to this. This is the April outlook from BOM. We see actually quite a similar pattern as to what I described to you over here. This is precipitation. The chances of exceeding median rainfall higher across the north, higher to the east, and we're drier in a pocket in through here compared to normal. So a lot of consistency between the European model and BOM's latest forecast. Now, to stretch this out, and this is the long range part of this, got some new data to share with you. Let's take a look at what that La Nina did. It's always instructive to watch this. Okay, the La Nina event beginning last July. This animation shows you what those ocean temperatures did through August, September, and October here. Now into November and December, to January, February, and now into March. Did you notice what I noticed at the end? The La Nina is fading. We're getting a lot of warming over here. The cooler anomalies have kind of dissipated here in the Central Pacific. And look at what's going on over the Indian Ocean. There's a story to be told there as well. Now remember, why we've had such favorable moisture throughout much of the last 6 months is because cooler water there from September to March in that middle Pacific area correlates to wetter conditions across the whole of Australia. This is the reason why. Whenever we have a La Nina event, we tend to promote a lot of rising motion over Indonesia and Australia. The subsidence or the sinking in the atmosphere happens over North America and South America, and we have had a lot of challenges with this. I'll show you what's going on in North and South America in just a few moments here. But here's the real reason why. I just want to make sure this is clear. With that La Nina, we got stronger trade winds. And on this side of the Indian Ocean, we had stronger westerly winds. And what happens is they just meet right here, and they cause the air to rise. And that's how we've ended up getting these above average precipitation patterns for the last several months, September all the way through the month of February. Interestingly enough, and this is uncharacteristic of a La Nina, over here in Queensland, right up against the East Coast here, that's been one of the driest places. And it's been because of subseasonal fluctuations that we have seen that. But overall, we would say, outside of that area, that the majority of Australia has had a fantastic last September through this February timeframe in terms of moisture return. Now, to get into the kind of the details of this, I've showed you this in the past. Going back to 1950, we're looking here at these spikes up as being big El Nino events. The spikes down being La Nina events. Now look at the difference here. Every time we have a big spike up during an El Nino, it usually just comes up and back down, right? In an entire season. Up, down. 15, 16, up, down. La Ninas don't do that. They tend to peak once and then have a secondary peak. Look at all the ones I circled down here. Do you notice that? So given that, there's question as to whether or not this La Nina, which is fading hard right now, makes a comeback by July, August, September, October. The European model says let it fade for the next several months and then possibly keep it into, well, neutral to negative territory in those ocean temperatures, which would be down here in the La Nina territory. The models, including the one from Baum and others, keep us through June in neutral to possibly slightly negative ENSO conditions, meaning La Nina. But right now, looking at our Southern Oscillation Index, remember, it needs to be above 7 to be considered La Nina. It was there, but throughout February into March, it's now cascaded down to neutral, which means those trade winds have really backed off. Now, real quick, a quick reminder on the Indian Ocean dipole. Positive phase, drought issues, cold here. Negative phase, much better precipitation, rising motion on our side of the Indian Ocean, cooler ocean temperatures over by Africa. Now, we remember how these events work. Look at what happened in 2019, the big spike up toward positive Indian Ocean dipole values in September, October, November, and then come crashing down to start the new year. That was responsible for some of the drought conditions that led toward the bushfires over here in this part of Australia, over there on the East Coast. We're right now here. And the forecast moving forward, remember this? Keep it in neutral territory and possibly going back toward negative. By June, you see a lot of negative values. I put the bullet point down here. This would favor, if we stay neutral to negative, wetter conditions as we go toward winter. And if we kind of put this all together, take a look at these temperature maps first. April, May, and June temperature anomalies. The European model is not picking up on strong signals. See, I mean, it's just maybe cooler, but near average. By July, August, September, the warmth, at least the best chance for being above average, is centered in the northern part of the country. Does the IRI multi-model group agree? Honestly, it does. April, May, June on the left, temperature pattern. On the right, June, July, August. See the same area showing up warm. Let's add to this what we're now seeing in terms of precipitation. April, May, June is over here on the left. You see, if we do have this ENSO neutral to, possibly weak La Nina, and we see the Indian Ocean dipole favoring negative values, there's no model in the world that's going to call you over dry. And it's the same thing when you look out there to July, August, and September. So it appears as though the ocean state, which is largely being used to drive these climate models, is giving us this look as we move forward. And the long-range European model, it sees a similar pattern. You notice that in April, May, and June, while it's trying to pick up on a drier pocket here, it returns some of that moisture to that region in June, July, August. And for Western Australia, we see that in both these longer range projections, we do hang on to a slight wet bias. Now, we're going to get some new updates once I give you the next presentation, so I'm looking forward to kind of adding that here. But if you've got a few more minutes, I just want to give you some updates on what's happening worldwide. So if you're done with Australia, you can log off here, but take a look at what's going on outside of Australia. We're going to go to Europe first. Very cold week on tap. This would normally be springtime in Europe. We're seeing temperatures there that might be upwards of maybe up to 10 degrees Celsius cooler than average. Now, thinking about the precipitation, it's going to be dry too. But come over here to, this is the Black Sea. This is kind of the southern Russian wheat belt and parts of eastern Ukraine. Something to take note of here. That area in their wheat belt, when they were sowing it, it was very, very dry. But throughout winter, look over the last 90 days, this area has seen above average precipitation, which means that winter wheat crop likely got the moisture it needed in winter to hopefully come out here in spring looking halfway decent. We'll have to wait to see how that all shakes down. South America. Now, I know we're talking about corn and soybeans, but there's something to be seen here as well. Down in Brazil, Mato Grosso right here, very late start to the growing season. Okay, monsoon showed up very late. Then the crop underperformed. When it was harvest time, some places saw upwards of 25 inches of rain during harvest, and it's still wet there now. They're trying to put a safrino or second or small crop in. It's mostly corn and cotton, but they've had trouble getting that in on time. We are now very concerned that over the coming weeks and maybe even the next couple of months, drought may settle in there, while some just-in-time rains have come down into Argentina and helped that crop along. From there, why don't we bounce over to China? Amazing cyclone here. Now you can see clearly it's spinning in the opposite direction as our cyclones down here in Australia, but this one pulled in from over 3,000 kilometers away, dust off the plateau, and wrapped it deeply into this cyclone here. Isn't that amazing? That was a big one. And in the U.S., we've been getting hammered with some big cyclones as well. Just this past weekend, we had dust, see it down here, getting pulled into this monstrous storm that really hammered our central plains. Now, it put down some big hail and a lot of tornadic activity, like you're seeing over there on the right. But in addition to that, we brought into our high plains of the United States a lot of snow. Some places that snow was measured in feet. 4 feet of snow in parts of Colorado and Wyoming. And if you've never seen it before, this is just a video and a picture of what it looks like. Now, that dust that was coming out of our desert got pulled into it as well. We could actually see the layer of dust in the snow in the state of Colorado. And look at how dry it is here. Here's the line of storms that went up producing the tornado and hail I just showed you. But on the back side, watch it again, that's all the dust that is still showing you how dry parts of the United States are right now. That's a big dust storm. So to show you that, a lot of moisture went right into this area, okay? What's the point of explaining that to you? Well, that is a primary area where we grow a lot of winter wheat. I've talked to you about the potential damage from the cold air outbreak they had there. Now we're putting down a lot of rainfall and snow on it, and the question is, will this help recover the crop in that area? Because that area is in drought. It is still in drought despite all that precip. Now this isn't a drought monitor map. This is a map that we have valid today down here in our cotton and peanut belt. That's where we grow down here in the south. It's also corn, soybean, sweet potato, lots of stuff down here. But do you see this area in through here? In that area is a high risk for severe weather put out by the Storm Prediction Center. There is actually a 45% chance inside that black polygon there of having a tornado within 25 miles of any given point. And this has kept me up all night, and I've been watching it all day, because here's just a video that surfaced in our state called Alabama, where they were out chasing this tornado here, and you can see the damage and destruction it's causing. The southern part of the United States right now is getting lit up with severe weather, one of our worst outbreaks in a very long time. So I want to give you that international perspective on what weather's doing here. We'll keep doing that in each video, but I appreciate the extra time you gave me today. Have a good rest of your week. Prepare for those heavy rains if you're in New South Wales and surrounding areas. In Western Australia, you are going over toward a drier pattern here in the near term. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks.